And
Oh my
so,
gosh, I'm so excited to talk about it. You're coming out. Woo!
I know, me too.
I'm your host, Ariana, and this is Hot Girls Have.
Hello and welcome back to Hot Girls Have. Although they've been around forever, parasites are taking the internet by storm. Maybe you just did your first parasite cleanse and the results were terrifying. Okay, now what should you do? Eastern versus Western medicine is difficult to conceptualize. What role do they each have in the world of parasites? Today, I'm talking to Kim Rogers, aka the Worm Queen. Kim worked in Western medicine for 18 plus years, but difficulties with her own health led her down a more natural route of healing. We'll be discussing what you should be doing after a parasite cleanse to support your body, and how the combination of Eastern and Western medicine might be just what you need. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you. Okay, so unfortunately, like a lot of people, I'm actually no stranger to the world of parasites. I personally struggled with parasites for the entire year of 2023 after living abroad in Australia and traveling a ton. And the infection was so severe that I actually had to quit my job and move home. It was crazy, but since we're getting so personal, I have actually never told any of this to anyone online. So back in 2021, I actually also had a 5-foot tapeworm, which is just wild. But interestingly enough, I actually used Western medicine for my most recent parasite issues, but I used Eastern medicine back in 2021. So I totally understand the value of both. But Kim, I know you also struggled with your health, and that is what ultimately brought you into this world. So before we dive into your personal journey, I actually want to start with a brief overview of a parasite cleanse itself. A lot of people downplay the validity of parasite cleanses. Like, let's just come out and say that. So what would you say to that?
I mean, the results speak for itself. When you are doing something and the root cause could be parasites and you're taking an anti-parasitic herb or an anti-parasitic medication and you have results, then I mean, I think that it kind of speaks for itself. And for me, that's really what ultimately it was for me on a lot of my issues was a parasite. So, and same with you.
And
Oh my
same-
gosh, I'm so excited to talk about it. You're coming out. Woo!
I know, me too. Okay, so what are the first steps someone should take after discovering they have parasites? Let's just intro to this conversation. I know a lot of listeners who already know you are probably familiar with this, but just for anybody who isn't familiar, just quick overview.
You want to make sure you're peeing, pooping, and perspiring, the 3 Ps. That's it. I mean, if you're doing that, you're ready to get going. We want to make sure the toxins are able to leave your system. The Parafy Kit helps you with all of that. We have so many resources as well. I think the most important thing is just really being ready as well in case you do see something, or if some people don't see anything, but they feel better. So definitely making sure you do the 3 Ps.
Okay, love that. So, okay, now let's get into the bulk of this conversation. So you've cleansed. Now what? What are some of the long-term effects that people might experience? And how can they begin to heal their bodies once they've gotten rid of these parasites?
For me personally, I was able to lose weight. My skin cleared up. That was probably my biggest indication that something was going on with me because I'm I wash my face every morning. I wash my face at night. I use really great face products, and my face was so broken out and swollen. And I couldn't lose weight. That was a big one. I had gluten allergies. I was lactose intolerant. And all of those things have gone away since I've cleansed. And then I found out, obviously, as some of you guys have heard, I did have Cryptosporidium parvium, pinworms, roundworms, and it was from my water at my house. So the next step that I've been doing and is just more self-healing and supporting. I want to support my gut. I want to make sure that my microbiome and my gut is healthy, because if you don't have a healthy gut, you're just going to continue to reinfect yourself, which you should be cleansing 3 to 4 times a year. Other countries cleanse at least twice a year with synthetics. Unfortunately, our country has pretty strict guidelines when it comes to that. With Western medicine, you have to test positive. Not all of it's covered by insurance. And it's quite expensive for those pills. So That's why we refer you over to an herbal cleanse like Parify. And so you want to make sure that you're keeping them out by keeping your body inhospitable and keeping the gut lining smooth. And that's, an anatomy and physiology thing, is that when the lining of your gut is not smooth, they have a way to make themselves habitable inside those little divots like H. pylori and diverticulitis. They can live in there and dormant in there. I mean, that's the thing. They can lay dormant in there for a long time. And then all of a sudden you have a flare up, and then bam, you have like
game
14
over.
types of parasites. Game
Right.
over.
Right. So is there something that people should be taking just kind of on the daily, like after you've done a parasite cleanse?
Absolutely. You should be eating pre and probiotics. I eat my kefir. I eat my
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut's my jam.
Love it.
I take a probiotic as well, with like I do a microspore type of probiotic, but I really feel like keeping the gut lining is the most important. Doing coffee enemas, very important. Cleaning out your colon, doing gutty a few times a month if you really like gutty. I really like gutty. Some people love gutty. You can do it a few times a month to just do colon cleanses, and then supporting your liver, supporting your kidneys. They're taxed. And we've been given heavy metals our whole life. So we really just want to make sure you're supporting, as well as doing all of the fun self-care things like infrared saunas. That's supporting your body. When you do a cleanse, you are more susceptible to dropping viruses like Epstein-Barr virus, the 2020 virus. You've got cytomegalovirus. I mean, all of the viruses, right? So you want to make sure that you're supporting your system with all of that.
I think that something a lot of people don't realize is that you can't just do a parasite cleanse and then leave it at that. I mean, like, let's talk a little bit about how parasites quite literally disrupt everything in your body, from like eating the serotonin in your brain to messing with your hormones to causing leaky gut. I mean, for me personally, first of all, I will say it feels pretty crazy to be even verbalizing so much of this, because I feel like I've kept it under wraps for so long, because parasites are such a weird, uncomfortable topic that people just I don't want to say believe in, but I kind of want to say believe in. I mean, I spent the entire year of 2023 going to doctors and getting tests done, and nobody thought anything was wrong with me. At one point, my family thought it was anxiety causing all of these horrible issues with my body. And would you go ahead and talk about kind of the timeline? So you do a parasite cleanse. How fast will you immediately start feeling better, or start feeling, some of those symptoms go away, such as skin improving? Maybe you had a gluten sensitivity, dairy sensitivity. Those might go away. I know that parasites can cause, like the whites of your eyes to not be as white. Like you'll have brighter eyes, less dark circles, less oily skin, etc.
I cleansed for a year straight. Like
full year of cleansing.
I did. And I rotated. I did herbs, and then I did synthetics, and then I did herbs, and I did synthetics. And I continually tested. There are a couple of signs that you can tell as well with just blood test. It's the EOS on your labs, your eosinophils, that you should get those tested as CBC. So it's a complete blood count during a full moon. And that's because they do eat our serotonin. So once your body starts to kind of stabilize, like you're saying, you're having problems with your hormones, it's because they ate all of the way that your body could stabilize. And now you're trying to restabilize it. And in order to do that, you want to make sure that you have some hormones that are being given to you on board. Like there's quite a few out there, like ashwagandha. That's kind of a type of a male-driven hormone. And you can look at how you can eat types of foods to help with that, to just get your body back to homeostasis. That's the whole point of what we're doing, is to bring our bodies back, because these things have taken 90% of our nutrients and they left us with 10%. So that includes anything you eat, right? And that's why we did tinctures, because it gets immediately into your bloodstream. So you're not fighting with anything in your stomach acid. And some of us have stomach acid issues, like myself.
Oh, I had that. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you poor thing. Okay, so I just want to say The tapeworm, I'm so sorry. It is one of the hardest things. And I'm very grateful I didn't have a tapeworm because I do know how hard it is. But it's why I added hawthorn into our tinctures, because hawthorn berry and tapeworms hate each other. So if you drink hawthorn berry every day, it'll make your body continue to be inhospitable. They just don't like each other. So we added it in. We have hawthorn berry and hawthorn leaf and flower because I saw so many tapeworms.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 out of 5 people is what I heard have a tapeworm.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we were chatting about this before this episode, but a couple years ago, the whole thing on social media was quote unquote hot girl bloat. Girl, you might just have a parasite. That's okay. But parasites are this like creepy, weird, gross thing that nobody wants to talk about. And
I'll talk about it all day.
I feel that. It's so important.
I'm all about the weird, I guess. I'm like, if there was anybody that could have done this, it's definitely I've been appointed. I've been appointed to by the universe, I guess, that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I mean,
we need that. Okay, wait. So let's go back to. I'm sorry. I could talk to you all day about all of this. Let's go back to that other question about timeline. So you do the parasite cleanse. How soon after are you going to start seeing results? What kinds of things might you see first? Because I do know that a lot of people, let me back up. I can assume that a lot of people that purchase a parasite cleanse might not actually test positive,
right,
or might not test at all prior to purchasing one, but they might do one because they just suspect. So give me a timeline. You do a parasite cleanse. You don't actually know if you have a parasite, but what kinds of things might you be seeing right after?
And that's okay if you don't test, because I'll be honest, most of our testing is very inaccurate. We have parasites.org is who I got my test from for my stool and my water, but everything is very inaccurate. They just don't do it in Western medicine. And I come from Western medicine, so if you don't know my background, I've been in Western medicine since 2004. Very dedicated, 2 different healthcare degrees. I was a professor. I ran 25 healthcare colleges for DeVry. I wrote anatomy and physiology books, electronic medical records. I was an author. I was a subject matter expert. Okay. So I had credentials behind my name like the alphabet. It was ridiculous because I loved what I was doing because I love the human body. So now that I've gotten that out, I just don't think that Western medicine is equipped for it here in Western medicine countries. And I don't just mean America. I sell a kit. I see all over the world where we're all kind of having issues. Canada, Australia, England, and the United States really are the biggest issues. And it's because they just don't have accurate testing. So we just kind of go on a whim and we're like, hey, do this cleanse. If you feel better, then that's probably what it is. If you see anything awesome, then we know. But even if you brought in, which a lot of people have, brought in their sample, it's come back negative, and you're like, this really is a parasite. How do you not know? Because they don't. I will tell you,
I literally did 11 different stool tests last year.
You poor thing.
Every single one tested negative. Huh?
Well, they don't have anything to compare it to. That's the problem. Yeah. So parasites.org sends it to Mexico, which they have the DNA structure of multiple different types of parasites and worms. And so they're able to then test. But in our country, LabCorp, they only get 3 minutes to test the stool, which also the stool has been sitting out, right? Because you're doing a sample, and they don't tell you guys how to sample appropriately either.
You're supposed to do it over multiple different days.
And just a little of each so that you get a sample of what your gut looks like. And then you let it sit out, but really you should refrigerate it because you're trying to keep them alive, and they don't give you those instructions. So by the time it gets to the lab, it has sat for 10 days, right? Not just because of you, but also the lab, because it's not a priority. They have 3 minutes to go through and look at it. And if the person looking at it, which I know because I used to train LabCorp people, if they don't know what they're looking for, they immediately say negative, but they stamp it saying this is not a diagnosis for a parasitic infection, but we didn't see anything in this moment in that stool. And it's like, well, what cycle was that worm going in? Like, what was really going on? Was it too hardened? Was it dead by the time it got there? So it just absorbed. Like, who really knows? So we don't have accurate testing. So we actually just say, just cleanse 3 to 4 times a year. And that's exactly what Mexico does. They say 2 times a year or with symptoms. And your symptoms can range from anything. And there's certain things that you can't do in Latin America, Guatemala, Jamaica. Like I did a lot of cruising last year. And I sat with a lot of the people from Jamaica. And they have this thing called the bush. And they drink the tea once a month. if not a couple of times a month if symptoms, and that's to expel parasites. Like everyone knows but us. Like it's just wild. And that's why I like Western medicine and I like traditional because they should be merged together, right? But Western medicine is not here to cure you. It's here for emergencies. It's here for the big C. It's here for those things. You are responsible ultimately for yourself, right? Within 3 days for me, I felt better. I knew what was going on within 3 days, but I wanted to make sure that like I got everything. So you can really, if you do it every 3 months, and then in between those, you do your parasite cleanse and then you do kind of a rest and digest. We have a support kit, which helps as like a maintenance and just continues to help support your body. And then we have a mold kit, which is also a mitochondria support. So, really, once you do your first kit and you start to kind of look at how you're feeling, you can then decide which way you want to go. If within the 30 days, if you still feel like, oh, I need to keep going, you give yourself a 7-day break and you do another one because these herbs are just re-supporting your body with nutrients that we just don't get in our food anymore as well. So you can use it as a supplement. You can use it as a daily supplement. I use it as a digestive aid. And then you're going to start to feel better. So you're going to start taking care of yourself better, right? So your timeline is this is a lifelong event for you. Like this is you're changing your life. You're changing the way you feel and you're going to really just feel better and you're going to want to continue down the path. But I do infrared sauna. I make sure that I've started exercising more. You know, you should expect maybe to have some viruses drop like we talked about. I found out I had chronic Lyme, but again, I'm like peeling the onion and seeing what's going on with my body.
To your point, I think it is wild that this is a lifelong journey. And I think the wild part is so many people haven't started yet. This is something where, toddlers get pinworms, and that's a normal thing. I mean, I don't know about you, but pretty much almost every younger cousin that I have has had pinworms at some point. I'm sure I did too. It's almost normalized. Okay, you get rid of them, and then what? We just don't have parasites at any point again in our lives? Like, did people forget? You have a very unique background coming directly from the world of Western medicine. I know you worked for nearly 18 years in the medical field, having authored multiple medical books, wrote national allied health certification tests, served on medical advisory boards, but you transitioned to this much more Eastern way of healing. So before we dive in to anyone who hasn't heard your story, would you mind giving a brief overview of why you're so passionate about sharing information about parasites?
So I had stage 4 endometriosis and I had 13 surgeries and a hysterectomy. And I've been chronically ill my whole life and I didn't want to be alone anymore. So I wanted to find a community. Little did I know that it was going to be revolved around parasites. I mean, I was deemed the worm queen and I was given that name, just so you know. My passion just stems from humanity.
You earned that name. That's what you did. You earned that.
TikTok gave it to me, and then it just kind of carried over, and I just laugh every time I say it. I just laugh. Like I didn't want to be known as the worm lady, so I'll take the credit.
Worm queen.
I just feel like we're just not given the opportunity to learn about the body. And so my passion stems from being able to have that knowledge and not gatekeep it. Like it's a lot of knowledge I've been through. I have 6 years of school under my belt. I don't know, maybe 10 classes if I wanted to be a PhD, which would make me a doctor. And I'm just I'm good.
No more.
I'm good. I just feel like you guys kind of had a disservice, right? Western medicine took over 100 years ago and they don't want to teach you about your body, and Eastern medicine does. And if you understand how one thing shows you what's going on internally, then I think people get a better understanding of what to do for themselves. And so I'm just really passionate about education. I've always been. That's why I was a professor, and my students not to brag, but my students were the best of the best. And I had like 96% of my students graduated and moved on to being doctors and nurses. I just was like an associate level, and then they all moved on because it's so fun, right? But I just feel like, as a layman, is what they call them in the medical world, that you guys just don't have that grasp of your body, and it should be something you're taught, like
Right.
in school.
100%.
know?
So I was so excited to talk to you because of this really unique intersection between Western and Eastern medicine that you kind of sit in. Because, like I mentioned before, my parasite journey has quite literally been at that intersection as well. Like, for everything that I went through last year, I did numerous natural parasite cleanses. And unfortunately, with what I was struggling with, it just wasn't quite strong enough because of the level of infection that I had. So I really had to lean on Western medicine for that. But a couple years ago, with that 5 foot tapeworm, a natural parasite cleanse, boom, gone. And I was so well, like the next day.
So you have to go in a specific way and rid your body of certain worms. And there are herbs that'll do that over a long period of time. But then how do you go in and clean up those eggs? And that's when you bring in Western medicine, right? Because they have a synthetic, it's fast, it gets to the point, it removes most of them, but it's also dropping eggs, and it's not removing. So when you're taking something like albendazole or menbendazole, right? We'll just talk about that. It is only removing specifics. It's only saying, I can only remove these 5 worms. Well, those 5 worms are holding on to other things. And then that's when herbs come in and clean up those other things, including Giardia, Crypto, D. fragilis. They're all holding on to something. Worms can hold on to 6 times their normal weight. They're also holding on to heavy metals. So, but when you take that synthetic drug, you're only killing those specific things the synthetic drug is telling you to kill, right? Your body's only responding to what it's being, the vibration of that medication. And so you've got to bring in a vibration of a herb or a vibration of another type of medication, like I like nystatin for candida. When your candida is so overwhelming your body, it's on your tongue. You have to take something to get your body to assist with it. And then you can come in behind and do more supporting. And that's what Western medicine is really meant for, like instant right now.
Right. So let's go back for a second. You said worms can hold on to up to 6 times their weight, right? And when you say hold on, for any listeners who aren't aware, parasites harbor heavy metals, toxins, like they literally hold on to them within their bodies. And when they are living inside of you, those things are now inside of you. So for a true real life example of this, I have had 2 melanoma skin cancer spots removed, and I am 24 years old. And although a lot of my doctors we don't have skin cancer running in our family, a lot of my doctors have no idea where this has come from. I personally think that it all goes back to parasites. I mean, clearly I've had a journey with parasites. I don't think it's an accident, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the timing of when I had them and the timing of when I had these spots removed, it makes sense. So I think this conversation goes so much deeper than, oh, you're bloating, oh, you have eczema, oh, you have acne, oh, you have a gluten sensitivity. Yes, get rid of your parasites. No, if you don't get rid of your parasites, you can actually have like really crazy life-altering things happen. Like, I know you've spoken at length about how so many women have contacted you and said, oh my gosh, I was able to get pregnant because I got rid of my parasites. Like, that's a huge deal. These are huge life-altering things. Yeah, like parasites are so common. They're everywhere. And I don't want to say they're like the number one reason we as a society are being held back, because I think that's a very large claim. But I do think they're a huge reason why so many people have so many issues and they're not able to work through them because they're just not even starting in the right place.
When your body isn't at a homeostasis level, it doesn't know how to process. It wants to heal. It doesn't want to be sick. Your body wasn't meant to be sick. So when you have stagnant cells, and that's what they vibrate at, that is what the issue is. They don't allow your body to process, so your cells remain stagnant. And when you're able to get your cells moving, you're able to process and put your body into homeostasis. And that is a huge thing with other cultures. And they know that this is what parasites and worms do to your body. They know it. And that's why they're like, you need to take this pill literally for $7. You can go into a Mexico pharmacy, bam, done. Right. And so they know that this can cause it. One, because it's in our produce, it's in our water. It's when you walk barefoot. For me, it was in my lakes, it was in my water. So they're everywhere. You eat sushi. And because we don't help our bodies out with herbs or with synthetics, removing them, they do just sit and cause other issues. And they do hold on to things. In my case, spores. I was living in mold. They were holding on to those spores. Once I removed the parasites, the spores dropped and then took over my body. And I had aspergillus poisoning, like to a point where my eyes swelled shut. And then I realized that I was in black mold and then I had to get out. But they held on to that. And I might not have ever known that I was in mold and I could have died from mold, right? Because I didn't know, because they were holding on to it. So when you start to cleanse them out, they're going to drop those things. So that's where you got to get that support. You got to make sure you follow through with more cleansing and just know that this is a life event. But you're trying to bring your body to where it should be vibrating at 7.5. It should be doing all the things that make it healthy and happy. And unfortunately, these things hijack us. They hijack us like no one's business. It's really sad that we're at this point where we're all like kind of, sometimes it feels like an undercover thing. Like you're like, hey, did you know you have a parasite? Ooh, let's not talk about that. But let's talk about,
Right. Totally agree with you. But again, to your point about Eastern versus Western medicine, I mean, I needed Western medicine in order to get rid of the melanoma skin cancer. Like, hello, that was like an immediate, I need a surgery. Like, couldn't walk for a month because I had such a large spot removed on my leg. But that was like life-saving for sure. Needed it. Okay, now that that's gone, I'm going to turn to Eastern medicine and really take some of these herbs daily to start like cleansing my body from all of these toxins that are just like everywhere.
Well, we kind of talked about this before we started recording. And I don't know if a lot of people know, but like a lot of our synthetic medications are based off of plants, but they can't be patented. Right. So they'll change one little minute amount on the DNA structure, and then bam, that allows them to make it as they do. So an example of it is usnea, which is in our Sustain tincture, and I cannot wait for you to try our kit. I'm so excited about it. But I broke down the DNA structure of usnea and also amanita, which is this mushroom right here. Everybody's familiar with the Super Mario mushroom. I learned how to break down the structure so that I could create something similar to what they have out in the pharmacy world, so that my body could actually process the medication or the herbs, which is what our bodies are meant to do, is process these herbs. Our livers are not always up to the task of processing synthetics, but they are up to the task of processing herbs. So anyway, usnea is usnic acid. It's an amazing herb that we put in. It helps remove bacteria and fungus, candida. And so that's just an example of, they took that, the usnea, made it into an usnic acid, and then people took it for weight loss. But because it was synthetic, it wasn't processing right in people's livers. But you take it in an herbal state and your body processes it. It's just kind of to show like why Eastern medicine understands, because it understands how each of our organs work, and Western medicine is really just for emergencies in a lot of ways.
Just for a little bit of context, what we were chatting about before the episode was just about how far we've come from the natural world, and how a lot of people forget that synthetics stem from the natural world. Like, did we all forget where we're getting these medications and drugs from? I don't know. Not to shame the American people, but I get it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the world of Eastern medicine, the world of Western medicine, there is a place for both in our society. And I think it's so important that people realize that we're not trying to put one against the other. Like, there's a place for both, for sure. And let me be an example of like, yes, I am pro both, for sure. I think there's so many other people that are actually just like me that don't even realize it. And so I think I've realized that it's so important to talk about it because I think, again, like everybody's struggling with something, and whether you want to admit it or not, the answer is probably something you've never even imagined it would be.
I would never imagined that I would be here. I thought I would be talking about mushrooms for the rest of my life. I never thought I would be talking about parasites.
And you're changing thousands of people's lives, might I add. So
it's so weird. It's so weird.
Actually, while we're on this topic, I would love to hear. I feel like you get tagged in people's posts all the time. I mean, I feel like everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, Kim, look what came out of me!" You know, they use your products and they're like mind blown. So, tell me about some of the craziest posts that you've been tagged in.
Well, I have to say, mine for Fulvic was the worst. Like the craziest, it was my most enlightening moment. I had seen them in the toilet when I did my first cleanse, but in October, so I did my first cleanse in June, and then in October, I'd gotten my hands on some Fulvic, which we also now sell Fulvic because of this.
And I did it for 2023. When was this?
No, this was in 2021. So I've been doing this since 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. I went viral in July of 2021, and then we started our company in December of 2021.
Okay.
In the middle of a log home build, in the middle of everything. I mean, it was wild. And so I did a foot soak, and I had worms come out of my feet and literally swimming in the water. Literally swimming. They were still alive. I have 2 marks still on my feet where they came out. I also have no marks because they came out of my pores. My husband had some come out of his, and I was like, that it was the shooketh I've ever been. Like I had to stop myself for like 3 days. And it's funny because I have a whole series, like I haven't posted some of it. And
the thought of worms
it was so wild. Okay, so I did a video and I was like, nothing's coming out. I'm kind of disappointed. And now I know how all of you feel when you don't see anything. And then like 1 minute later, I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And it's like circling in the water and it's like swimming itself. I'm like, this is effing wild. What is happening here? Like, and I have the whole thing recorded because I'm like, why is nothing going on? And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I feel tingling. And then all of a sudden I go, oh my God, I feel movement. And then all of a sudden it came out and I have it all on video and I'm like, how is this my life? Like, how is this real?
And then, like, immediately like, oh my gosh, I feel better.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, that was, so October, I was like, okay, I think I'm on to something.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I did get the Fulvic soak. So I'm excited. I'm terrified, but I'm excited.
You can do both the feet and a bath. So people do both. You got to let it sit for 30 minutes, get out your phone. The stuff that's kind of on the top is heavy metals. And then usually there's like white things that come out and big chunky blob things that are like biofilm come out. Some people, their first one, they don't really have anything. Then let it sit for 30 minutes. Then let all the stuff come up. You can drain the tub or your foot soak and then do an Epsom salt. That'll stop with the itching or any of the movement that might appear in your feet. And also take a binder because it's an anti-parasitic. They don't like Fulvic. They like come out of it. They come out of your pores. That's what's happening. Your body is your biggest organ. It's, it's your biggest organ. So they're going to come out of there.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's casual. No, we need to talk about this more because people need to understand that it's not something to be ashamed about. It's not. Right. Like, don't be ashamed if stuff comes out of you. Don't be ashamed.
You want it to come out.
Right,
you don't
right.
Want it to absorb. Like
we're all in this feeling journey together.
Yes. And we're always here. Like we have a community. We have a safe place for you to talk. I want to add that you're your own patient advocate. And even though you can go see a doctor and you can do these herbal cleanses, you're the one at the end of the night that has to lay your head down with the decisions that you made. And don't let anybody change your mind. If you're just doing this just to see, if you're doing this to feel better, it's the most important thing that you believe in yourself. and you have to advocate for yourself. If I didn't patient advocate for myself, I'm not sure where I would be right now. And I did try, and my doctors refused to listen. And I was like, then I don't need you as my doctor anymore. I'm going to find someone who's actually going to be on this journey with me, not just someone that's going to tell me what to do. I need you to help me, not tell me. There's two different things. If it's not a good fit, go find someone else, because there's someone else out there that's going to help you and really want to be a part of your journey.
We love ending every episode with one key takeaway that listeners can drop in their group chats. What's yours?
You should be proud of yourself for taking this scary step. And just know that there's people out there that are going to support you, care about you, and love you. And that's the community that I personally have wanted to always build for myself. And that's what we've been doing. We really are a community. So just know that it's wild and you're going to have a good time and you're going to feel spiritually enlightened. You're going to feel physically lighter. Just know that you're doing it for yourself and no one else.
Kim, thank you so much for this incredibly insightful conversation. This was amazing.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Hot Girls Have. You can find anything we mentioned in our show notes. Want more? Visit our website or check out our social media. This podcast is brought to you by Belly Welly, leading the charge in women's gut health.